Transformation is a word we hear often in South Africa, in boardrooms, in policy, and across industries. But in the property sector, it carries a particular weight. It's about ownership, access, opportunity, and ultimately, it's about who gets to participate in shaping the spaces where we live, work, and shop. I am Vuso Majija, and this is the Retail Exchange brought to you by Fortress Real Estate Investment. Today, we're taking a closer look at transformation in the property sector, what progress looks like, and what still needs to change. South Africa's property sector plays a significant role in the economy, but like many other industries, it continues to grapple with the legacy of inequality. The Property Sector Charter was first introduced in 2007. Initially, it was a voluntary transformation charter for the property industry. It later became legally binding when it was aligned with the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Act and was gazetted as a sector code in 2012. It was introduced to drive transformation, but impact and implementation have varied across the sector. To assess where we are today and where we need to go in the future, I'm joined by Ms. Portia Tau-Sekati, the CEO of the South African Property Charter Council. Ms. Portia, welcome to the Retail Exchange.
Thank you so much.
I've been wanting to speak about this important topic for a long time because e-transformation and BE generally is in the media. But before we get into the meat of transformation and where it's going, please give us a brief background about yourself, who you are, and how you became involved with the Property Charter.
Thank you so much. I think I almost forgot where I come from. It's been so long. Well, actually, I started in the industry a while ago, and I was really servicing the real estate industry, and once again setting up the real estate in terms of its formation and how they participate in the policy of government.
Yes.
And it was with that engagement where we ultimately then started to engage and get to know everybody. Then I was then recruited into the sector participation, of which real estate is a portion of.
Yes.
And that's when I got here. And that was as way back as 2007.
2007. Well, I started working in 2006, so close enough. Let's get into it, Ms.
Sure.
Portia. As I mentioned earlier in my introduction, transformation has been in the media recently. Some, on the one hand, are attacking it, saying that it's not working, it's discouraging investment.
Right.
Its supporters, on the other hand, say that there's been progress. They do, however, acknowledge that maybe there were some shortcomings in the implementation, and that's where the focus is. Let's fix the implementation. So from your point of view, where do you think we are, or what is the state of transformation within the South African property industry?
Yeah, and then maybe let me backtrack to closer to before I come to answering the question directly about the importance of transformation and why it really was necessary. So it was a policy that was meant to actually create inclusive participation in the mainstream economy.
Sure.
So, and here's a point. There is absolutely no chance whatsoever that our economy would be able to grow at the desired rate. Ideally, we would talk about 6%, that would be, unless if everybody has got an equal opportunity to participate in it. So when you talk about the stats in South Africa, we're talking about 61.3 million people,
Sure.
of which we're talking about 78 are Africans, we're talking about 2% Indians, 7% are colored, and then you've got the 8% that are white.
Sure.
So when you break it down, and when we refer to black, it means 98%, and black would be African, colors, and Indians.
Sure.
There is no chance whatsoever that if you excluded 98% of the population, we would be able to grow at the desired rate.
Sure.
So hence the policy then came into being. And its custodians is the Department of Trade and Industry, as we are speaking off air just now. And their role is really to bring trade and industry into the country to be able to grow the economy. Now, one of the questions, or amongst some of the questions that they ask themselves is, how could we grow this economy?
Sure.
So, and when they look at it, is that, okay, we want to grow this economy, but 98% are excluded.
Correct.
So how do we bring it in? So transformation is one, only one, not necessarily there are others as well. That's really meant to bring everybody to participate in the mainstream economy at the desired rate. And that's really what
That's what it's about.
That's what it's about.
Look, not to cut you off, I think you raised an important point there, because you spoke about a 6% growth in the economy. And it reminds me of the 2000s,
Yeah.
when the economy was growing.
Yes.
And one of the things that stood out for me at that time was the growth of the black middle class.
Correct.
Now, the black middle class, part of the growth, obviously we were coming from apartheid and we're becoming a more inclusive society.
Right.
But part of those drivers was there was affirmative action,
Correct.
BE was coming in,
Correct.
so it brought the black middle class up. But what it also did, it opened a lot of opportunity for business. So everyone benefited during those times.
Spot
So it
on.
makes sense. It makes sense what you are saying, that for the economy to actually grow, you need to bring in everyone.
Everybody. And what it does is actually, and when we talk about BE in particular, I think in a lot of the times, people are so quick to say, oh, I'm level 1, I'm level 2. That is the outcome of what you would have done and have achieved.
Yes.
The true and main essence of what it is to make our economy sustainable, is to make our economy productive, is to make it innovative, globally competitive. And we don't say that enough.
No, and vibrant.
We say a lot more, I'm level 2, level 1, which is what we are meant to achieve. But unless if you actually make the economy sustainable. And what do we mean? Because if you actually participated, you had an economy that excluded a certain portion of the economy, there is simmering frustrations.
Correct.
And those simmering frustrations, at some point, they erupt.
Yes.
And when they
We've seen that
erupt,
before.
We've seen that before in mining, in sectors.
100%.
But when that erupt, then it gets to a point where obviously it shakes the economy. We've seen it in various sectors.
Sure.
And it's difficult then to pick it up. So that's exactly the point, is to make it sustainable. And the more you bring people that are different, and it makes you think differently. You've got a different customer base. Now you need to come up with different marketing solutions.
Sure.
So you think and you become globally competitive.
Correct.
Because now you are broader, your base is much broader.
You've got a bigger market.
You've got a bigger market.
Yeah.
And that is actually the part of the important part when you talk about, we call them the black diamonds.
Yes.
At the time when they're starting
yeah.
So when they started to come up, it was a lot of things.
It was fun. It was vibrant.
Absolutely.
Everyone,
it was very
everyone,
vibrant. And there was a lot of change,
Correct.
if you recall. And the way we thought about things became very different. So, and that's the essence of where we're going to. So with the BEE, the intention is basically, is that how do we do that? It stays sustainably, that there is that growth continuously, because everybody is now brought into the economy, and then they are able to participate.
Sure. But let me come back to my question to say, I get what you're saying, actually. Maybe let me pause a little bit. I get what you're saying, because what you're saying that we need positive buy-in
Correct.
into the transformation project.
Absolutely.
And we need to see transformation as a good thing for business.
Right.
So I don't think anyone can dispute that. But maybe let's come back and assess where we are as a country, particularly as a sector.
Correct.
Where are we? What's our current state?
Look, and you can't look at the sector without looking at the broad base, and I'll come back to the sector. But as a company, we've had humps and bumps along the way, but lots of lessons as well along
Sure.
the way. So there has been quite reasonable progress, albeit very slow.
Sure.
And so having said that, from a broader context, as a sector itself, I'm very encouraged, I must say, and I have the fortune of actually having been, or at least convening other sectors in their councils as in their transformation space. And there's about, I say 12 plus one. There's 12 and there's a recent one plus one, which is the legal sector. And how we're doing, it's actually we are reasonably progressing forward.
Yes.
We're still also very slow. But where I am encouraged, and by the way, the answer is, well, it's not even, it's not homogeneous. It's not the
Yes.
same, because there's commercial, then there's residential, then there's social housing. Sometimes I know the question is, okay, which part of the sector are you talking about? Because it always differs.
Yes, it does.
So, but where we've seen quite a transparent progress, it's actually in the commercial space.
Okay.
And I'll come back to that. But in the residential space, it has not been as transparent, mainly, and up until very recently, where there was a Property Practitioners Act.
Yes.
Where the residential estate agents, or what they call them now, property practitioners, now were forced to now be able to participate or get their trading certificate, they call it Fidelity
Yes.
Fund certificate, only if you've then submit your BEE.
Sure.
And now only then you're starting to see it very openly in terms of transferring. Previously, what they then did is, I don't work with government, I don't need my BE, so whoever comes to me will come to me, they'll buy. So, and that's where, in that phase, we saw a lot of barriers that could be put and that you could not trace, and they were not transparent.
Okay.
In the commercial space, it has always been very open. More to say, even in the listed sector, where there's obviously from a reporting governance perspective, it's been very transparent, so you can see it. And the more, what comes with transparency is the issue of it's being reported. Somebody owns it. It's you're accountable to someone, and that's where then the progress comes through. So, and even if though it was doing badly, the point is you would know where it's doing badly.
Yes.
You would know what to do about it and how to go about it, right?
Yeah.
So where you don't know, it's a touch and go. You don't know what you're touching.
Don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, So, but we do know. I mean, the residential, it's very big. I mean, as we speak, the industry is 9.4 trillion.
Yeah.
Of which 6.7 trillion, which is made up of 7.1 million houses in the country, is residential. And there's a lot of transactions that are happening.
Yes.
There's about 15,000 estate agency companies. Out of that 15,000, up to 2 years ago, 80% of those transactions were actually received by 27 companies. The balance of 14,997 were sharing the 20.
Okay.
So the top brands were doing that.
Yes.
But here's a fortunate circumstances. Where are we now? There's a lot of disruption in the economy because a lot of, or rather not in the economy, but just generally AI has just disrupted the market.
Yes.
Because the growth of estate agents were based on footprint, systems, and those are now the kind of things that don't count anymore.
Exactly.
I don't
That's
need to have
online.
a physical office to
Yes.
operate. I don't need systems. You can find them everywhere. So, disruption has come up with its own positive things
Yes.
from that perspective. Are we seeing a lot of black estate agents? Not as many as we should, but
Aren't we?
certainly there's been progress.
I think there has been progress because in the township long ago, I never knew an estate agent. But every time I drive into a township now, there's estate agent boards everywhere. So in my mind, it's.
But here's a difference. Which boards do you see?
The normal franchise.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, and guess who makes the money? The real money, the franchisor. So in a country where 98% is black, where's Mufukeng and Shabalala estate agency?
That is a very good point because I've seen very few Shabalalas. No, but that's a good point. Particularly, I don't know. I'm in the retail commercial space,
Right.
so I don't know a lot about residential. But I would have thought, with all the RDP houses and all the developments that are happening in the previously underserved areas, that there'll be improvement on that front.
Spot on. It should have been. I mean, I mean, you would know from the township how many developments we've had.
Everywhere.
We've had Deep Kloof Extension, you have
Everywhere.
Selection Park, we had Mabopane, First Loraf, Sprayed View,
Yes.
you name them. So
Correct.
literally, there has been bonded houses. Previously, you could say, okay, we didn't have bonded houses, and therefore there couldn't be transactions, and now there are. So now that actually comes to the point of answering your questions, that saying it was just not only about and in a lot of cases, when there's no transformation, the issue has always been it's a capital intense industry,
Yeah.
and therefore it's difficult to go in.
Sure.
My response is that is it the only thing? Because in residential, it's not capital intense to go in and set up. So therefore, why is it so difficult? So it then brings over about skills, knowledge, exposure, and the list goes
Sure.
on and on. So it's not one aspect, is many, and they interact. And
Sure.
in the manner in which they interact, sometimes they bring the results which they
Sure.
do. Because if you said it was just capital intensive, I would have said, oh, then the real estate should have been way transformed,
Yes.
right? And it's not the case.
So you're saying, depending on the sector, residential is easier from a capital point of view.
Correct.
Maybe commercial is more difficult, or maybe the listed is more difficult from a finance point of
From a
view.
finance
So
perspective.
that's what I think the focus has been on. All the stuff that I read
Yes.
talks about, and the people that I speak to talk about difficulty to accessing finance as being one of the barrier.
Sure.
Perhaps I'm skewed talking to a certain section of the market.
The market, yeah.
So maybe let's speak about that. Let's speak about commercial a little bit, and let's dive into this funding. It's always come up
Right.
as a topic to say people do not have access to funding
Correct.
with the banks, with government, etc.,
Right.
etc. Why is that, and is there progress being
Yeah.
made on that front?
Look, and the issue raising is real. Indeed, funding is not easy, but it's not the only thing. And you would know that when we talk about when we do a transaction, we talk about also both the jockey and
And the horse.
the horse itself, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a good jockey, sometimes you don't have the right horse. If you
Sure.
have the right horse, you don't have the right jockey. So sometimes it's experience that comes along. But I must say there has been some innovative ways. I think we still need to have more. There still needs to be a lot more collaboration with other sectors. So, and when I say there has been some instances, and I can give you an example, in the one that you probably can relate and you know very well, where sometimes you can refer to policy that can actually help stimulate also funding.
Correct.
And the one that I can practically relate with and resonate with, because when we wrote that policy, the empowerment policy for public works,
Yes.
what did that enable? So basically, you would know that government is actually the biggest property owner in the country,
Absolutely.
right? So with that, what did we do? The empowerment policy enabled people to then come in, and then we said, okay, if you look at these particular elements, whoever participates has got access to then 10 a 99-year lease, and then
Yes.
of course it got there's dynamics into it, so they were able to participate. What then happened after that? Then you got the likes of Motseng that became Delta, you got Dijalo that
Yes.
became Dipula, you then have a Billion that became Rebosis.
Yes.
So policy also plays a part in terms of so how you do it. But we've also seen some interesting, and in the latter part, not so much now because a lot of them has happened, whilst funding was an issue. I mean, people battled with the fact that, if I were to actually partner with Fortress, damn, where would I get that huge money?
Yes.
So the point then, people started transacting under specific assets.
Yes.
So you then saw, especially companies, accounting officers, legal offices that says, okay, Mr. Landlord, I sit in your building,
Yes.
but if you're not transformed, unfortunately, my procurement score is low.
Sure.
So, okay, and then Mr. Landlord says, okay, Mr. Tenant, what do we do?
Correct.
And says, okay. And then people started transacting,
Yes.
but not necessarily on a portfolio basis, but on that specific asset
yes,
basis.
yes.
That made it easier, right? So it opened a different thought of thinking and of structuring even funding. So
deals.
it started to become possible as opposed to funding money for the entire fortress. It's
Yes.
okay. Now we are
can do
transacting.
individual. So
Yes.
people became innovative.
Yes.
And I suppose any policy goes through a process of evolution. Evolution, sorry.
Yeah.
So maybe what you're saying is we've moved forward from where we were.
Correct.
We may not necessarily be where we want to go,
where we
but
want to be.
we're probably at a better place than where we started.
Correct.
I can buy that.
And I must say, in our industry, I like how our industry are always keen of a different ways of thinking.
Sure.
And another one was sale leasebacks.
Sale leasebacks, yeah.
At some point,
Yes, it was. I think it was late 2000s.
Correct.
Late.
Yes. When people realize, okay, we don't have the money, but a car dealer says, listen, I sell cars. I know nothing about buildings.
But
you take the building, but I want to sell cars, but I need this to actually sell the
Sure.
cars. I need this building to sell the cars, you
Yeah.
know? So, and then those sales back. So there has been some innovative, and it will continue to happen.
I think so.
So the point is that, yes, we do need to continue to be innovative in our thoughts. And look, property is property. You'll never be able to wish away the funding side of property.
Okay.
And what makes it different in other sectors, so you'll see when we write the legislation, the interpretation even on when the seller, how you pay the seller, it's slightly different to any other.
Yes.
To an event management company, you must pay that in 10 years, it must be done.
Yeah.
So for us, and I always make a very simple example that everybody relates to, is that when you buy a house, after 10 years, you're still just paying the equity.
Yeah.
You haven't even touched the equity.
you're
You're
still
still
paying
paying
the
the
interest.
finance, the
Yeah.
interest and everything else. Only after then you start paying the interest. So that, a simple example like that resonates with from an individual basis.
Sure.
So therefore, with property, it takes much longer, and so on and so on. But
It does.
but eventually it helps. It develops the balance sheet, and then you are able to go on. But it's actually it's being able to crack that point in order to be able to do it. So what did we do as well? So as part of the legislation in ownership, and you would know that better than I would, that you would always you assess your portfolio, right? And say, am I still doing well here? Should I dispose?
Yes.
Should I re-strategize?
Correct. Yeah.
Should I leave these medium-sized warehouses and go to the big one? They still
Yes.
require the same effort anyway.
Your
The
situation
retail.
changes.
Correct.
Yes.
So in the legislation, what we then added is the clause on disposal of assets.
Okay.
Where the requirement is, if you dispose assets, we will then and to a particular group, then you get a certain point.
Sure.
So, and that's where then obviously that was another encouragement. So we're coming in different ways.
form.
Where are we in terms of the era now? So particularly from a government perspective, there has been it's assessment of portfolios.
Okay.
So the president then says, okay, state organs, you've got all of these properties that you
Yes.
have, but are they useful now compared to when you first got them? Think about those Transnet petrol,
Correct.
the station commander
100%.
houses.
Yes.
I don't think they do what they were meant to do.
Every time I drive, maybe you drive to a small town and you look
Correct.
at all those
Yeah.
old rail houses
Right.
that are laying in waste.
Correct. So the assessment is, including ESCOM, including everybody else, is that let's keep that which is core to us.
Yes.
That is not core and that's not
Okay,
doing
that's
us
interesting.
well. Let's dispose it.
So that process is in process, because that was one of the questions that I had.
Yeah.
Well, the question was going to be, how serious is government about transformation? Because if they are the largest owner of property in the country, they should be driving transformation using their own portfolio.
Yes.
So if you're saying that they are doing an assessment to say which is core
Yeah.
and which is perhaps some that we can release to the market, I think that's great.
That's progressive, but it also has a lot to do with how you implement and when you implement. I mean,
Yes.
I know we started the process with ESCOM, and I always say, things always find their way of just
Yeah.
like slowing you down. And then when we did start with ESCOM, then ESCOM got divided into 3 different companies.
Yes, you start from scratch.
Distributor, transfer. So now every CEO has to take responsibility of it. Says, okay, hold on with your disposal. Which part is mine? And
Yes.
why are we disposing and so on? And well, look, the point is that, yes, it is right. You've got to take accountability of each of what we're doing. So the process is going on, but there is a lot of property. I mean, the total of state organs is 66 billion. And actually not even state organs, rather, sorry, state-owned enterprises. Yes. There's 19 of them.
Yeah.
And it's 66 billion. In that 66 billion, 76% of the 66 billion is ESCOM, Transnet, PRASA, and EXA. And so if those were just even to dispose, and here's where it helps also, it helps for transformation. Yes, there's funding, but okay, if it's been disposed by the government, then there's policy that it can support them. Similarly, even we were talking about residential earlier. Where's one of the barriers? The biggest barrier is that they don't have stock, right?
Stock of accommodation of houses.
Yeah, they don't have stock to sell.
Yes.
So a lot of them says, okay, I'm set up, I've got everything else, but I don't have stock. But if I get the stock from ESCOM, I said, okay, Mr. Estate Agent, what are you short of? It says, I need stock. So, okay, I've got stock for you. You can go sell there. Here's inspector's house where the train
Sure.
used to go in.
100%.
You can sell that. So those are the things. But it needs to be well coordinated, well facilitated. And then we need to also rub off some egos. People, there must be no egos. It must just be a program where the minds fuse together towards a single vanguard of being able to drive that.
I think it definitely needs to be well coordinated, because you don't want a situation of, again, a large portion of those go to a few
Correct.
connected
Correct.
individuals. So I think that's going to be an interesting process. I'm actually glad, because I wasn't aware that these are the conversations that are happening. To move on, we can't not talk about this particular topic today, because it's quite topical in the media.
Correct.
The Transformation Fund. Everyone has got different opinions about it.
Yeah.
Some are saying that, look, if you want people to put money with government, and government has lost a lot of confidence from people, so some people have got a problem with that.
Yeah.
It's obviously going. I remember there were commentary.
Yes.
Suppose going through the process. So I don't know when those results are going to come out. But from your perspective and from understanding what the policy aims to do and what the industry is saying, when and if it gets implemented in the property sector, or well, it's not a property sector thing.
Yeah.
When and if it gets implemented, how do you think it's going to play out in the property sector?
Yeah. So actually, how will it play out generally?
Generally, yes.
Generally, full stop, right? So, and you know what? And government is late with it, but at the same time, trust is currency, right?
Yeah.
So you can't withdraw where there is nothing. We've already overdrawn.
Right.
Even the overdraft is gone.
Yes.
Right. So that was part of the issue. Look, the thought process it's not necessarily a bad one, but it's just that we don't have fundamental components to carry the maybe a good thought.
Yes.
To take this forward, okay? And the point, though, is that, okay, and you haven't done many other things.
Yes.
And now you want to go into the
What
next.
makes you think you can do this
Yeah,
one?
you haven't done the other things. Still within the same context that you needed to do. Now, why would this one happen? You
Yes.
know. But at the same time, look, where I become a little sympathetic to some extent, but I do it with a little bit of caution, is where it says there's people that are saying, listen, we want to be part of a transformation, but we don't have time. We've got business to run.
Correct.
We don't know what to do and how to do it.
And things change all the time.
Yes,
Can't keep up.
yes, we can. So therefore, we will do this part. So there is a little bit of that, maybe soft landing for me for it there, but
That's soft landing. You know how I've thought about it?
yes,
If it was not done at a global or national level, if, for instance, the property sector had its own fund managed by people from the property sector, maybe those people who say I don't have time within the sector would contribute.
even more confident. I'll tell you, and I think we are not far off. And I can tell you because I know for sure we set up, and we were convening the sector council issues. So
Yes.
one of the issues that we've raised, okay, so I don't know if you know that it will then be administered with the NEF. But NEF, it's another, it's a DTI, just another DFI under the DTI.
Sure.
So there are other sectors that have already got transformation fund. Like, for an example, if you recall, construction has got one. Remember after the stadium issues where they
Yes.
were found by the
Correct.
Competition
Yes.
Commission, so they were told to put money.
Sure.
So it's running, and it's running relatively
Okay.
well.
So that's a good. Is that a good case study?
So that it is, they haven't used everything, but it's running well. The property sector, by the way, the PPRA, which is the regulator,
Yes.
has got a transformation fund, which they're running. So, and strangely enough, and this coincides very nicely because now we're setting up a meeting. So NEF says to me, Portia, can we please set up now? Because we've had all the sectors engaged, let's set up the transformation fund. But the issue is, if anybody contributes into the transformation, it's going to have to be ring-fenced. So if it's a property sector,
Sure.
it needs to be ring-fenced under property sector. Why is that? Because you're going to have other sectors
Yes.
over-transformed, others under-transformed. And even the choice of where you utilize would be very subjective, right? So that's a point. But here's where the missing leg of your question is who's administrating.
100%.
So, and
Who better to administer? I mean, we've got bankers who've got experience in property finance. We've got developers. Who better to administer that than the sector itself?
And you know what? And for me, I don't think it's almost close to impossible to actually convince them to do that. And I'm fortunate because I was saying, and I speak to NEF very often. The idea would be, Mr. NEF, you can be an oversight. You can be an play oversight role.
Yes.
But let each sector
100%.
be able to do it. You will have more traction.
I think if you can do that, that provides a part solution to the funding issue that's always
probably a major part.
correct.
Yeah. So probably a major part of the solution. I mean, you look at even the PPRA. The PPRA has got the transformation fund. I don't even know whether they know what to do with it.
Sure.
So I'm saying it's that lack of confidence in terms of sometimes on state organs, semi or public sector. But if there was more confidence. But I like, and the other part of what I like about the idea of this is, because the one thing I always say about where's the impact is because we do a lot of things and we've done, well, good things, but we are also very fragmented as well. So the more, if you brought your 2 cents, he brought his 2 cents, and I end up with the 10 cents, I could do things with a much better impact, right? So, and that's where the thought about what we like. So I think the thought process for me that we want to take, we've already sold to the minister to say, you're going to have to ring fence. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
100%.
Yeah, you can keep the ones for the codes of good practice, the ones that belong nowhere.
Sure.
Please keep that because they belong nowhere.
Don't touch property.
Yeah, you just do actually, and maybe not just only property, but sectorize those that belong to particular sector.
Yes.
Let them own the process and let them drive that process.
And it's a voluntary, so you don't have to do the fund. You can carry on doing all the other work that you were doing, if that works for you.
Yeah, and then also to say it was written clumsily though. From a perspective that it said something that it was not meant to say. It's actually, when you read it somewhere, it says, and that section, I think it's 21, 22, 23, it says, do 21, 22, 23, or transformation. So in that particular instance, is that it removes even preferential procurement.
Yes.
So, and I've heard it. Some other big organizations have actually told me, oh, if
I don't have to do that.
No, I actually don't need to do transformation at all because it doesn't count.
Sure.
Right? So, but I think it was an unintended consequence.
Okay.
So that needs to actually be.
But that can still be fixed because
it can still be fixed because it was a public participatory. So we do need to do that. But there's still a lot more that still needs to be done. Things have changed very drastically from where we come from where we started. COVID has taught us a lot. But here's one big, huge one, and you can relate to it as well, is the world has become borderless.
Yes.
We have a lot of our members that have, and particularly us, and maybe not necessarily only us, but other sectors, ICT being one, where you've got property in South Africa and you've got property somewhere else.
Yes.
There's no way I can say, oh, where are you procuring? Where are your people? When that thing is in
somewhere else.
Yeah. Of course, yeah. Right? So we've got to relook in terms of what our policy was meant to do, and with the changes that are happening and have happened, what is the new direction in terms of strategy? So he's looking at that new. We're looking at that new strategy,
okay.
Because the world has become borderless. And I say I'm complaining, but I wouldn't want to. Well, actually, I have spoken to ICT, and they are bleeding badly. ICT, you can imagine. Yes. So they've literally and the conversation will continue to then happen. And we also, when you consider where we come from, there was a time where our economy was very suppressed. Yes. Our yields were not actually what they should have been. Yeah. So we were needed to and then people diversified, right?
So you bring in another point. When the economy was growing,
yeah,
and again go back to the 2000s,
yes,
there was a lot more activity in transformation, affirmative action, etc. Yeah. When the economy slowed down, I get a sense that I'm not saying we went backwards, but I think the pace of transformation maybe slowed down with the economy. Is that a fair or correct assessment?
It is a fair assessment and also a reality in a matter. If you think about if you had to do something for survival.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between, it's a posture of where you are at the point in time. There are some things that you do because, yes, there's a conducive environment for you doing that.
Yes.
And then there are certain things that you don't do because, listen, if my lungs are not breathing in my lung, I'm not going to be talking about going to and having a good time somewhere else. My main focus is survival.
Correct.
Right? So, and that's where it is. But then again, and I've asked myself that thing as well, is the chicken or the egg? So which one comes first?
Yeah.
Do we all contribute to stimulate the economy so that it grows, or it's not growing because we also everybody's not necessarily participating?
Yeah.
So that is also the question, because one of the things though that, and we haven't said that loud enough, one of the difference between this legislation and any other legislation, it was not meant to be perpetual. It's time-based.
Okay.
At some point, it's meant to cease to exist.
That makes sense.
And the question is, though, when is that? Now, and that's where reporting comes in. That's why there's reporting. So at some point, somebody needs to look at it as that, oh, we've met what we are meant to do. It's meant to cease to exist. And
Sure.
and sometimes you can't take away the fact that when you refer to some concepts, the 2000 look at you funny. What are you
talking about? Yeah.
What are you talking about? So it's meant to actually. So it's meant to fulfill a certain role. And so and here's a tug of war here. It's meant to fulfill and it needs to cease to exist. But the question is, and when is that? And everybody says, 30 years past democracy, you're still here. But I say, yeah, we're still talking about, but it was never time that was going to make a change. It was the will of the people that's going to make
a
change.
change.
And the question that you should ask, have we done that which we're supposed to do? And the point, and some people do ask, but why did we have this legislation? Listen, if you did what we needed to do, we probably didn't need to have it.
Yeah.
But because it wasn't done, therefore we needed to introduce this, right? So we are here. But is it moving at the pace? It's not necessarily moving at a pace. So here's the things that we always like going and you going this side, petting the other side, and then this other side is leaking and so on and so on. But the point is, despite the frustration, I don't think giving up is an option.
No, giving up is not an option, particularly if we're not there yet. Something that I want to speak about is I read your latest State of Transformation report.
Right.
And I think you say that we're doing well as an industry, but we could be better. And so another place we're falling short on is employment equity and senior management.
Yeah, and that's a point. We've progressed forward. There was a point some couple of years ago, just pre-COVID, we were doing badly on 3 elements: management control, employment equity, and skill development. And it's no surprise that the 3 are tagged together,
Correct.
right? Because they feed into each other. But now, proudly, we can say we're doing relatively much better in economic development, and we're shooting the lights out of our at least targets, or maybe not reaching them, but progressing nicely on skill development. So
yes.
people have picked up that
100%.
because and when we were doing badly. Where we were doing badly, we were getting worse. Where we were doing better, where we were doing well, we were getting better every year. So the trend was was actually very glaring in a sense. So we started to focus and put some energy into certain things.
I think it's working.
Yes.
Because, I mean, from our point of view, I think there's more training going on.
Right.
Maybe those people that are being trained are not yet at positions to be senior managers, etc. So maybe the training needs to progress towards that state.
And that's one thing out of the many things, out of all the elements in the legislation, there's one element that you can't do overnight.
Which one
is
that?
Skill development.
Skill development.
Yeah.
Now,
you can wake up and do procurement overnight. And I've seen it happen. I've seen a bank that says, listen, I've got 11.3, just give me that and will it give me two levels up?
Yes.
And they would do that literally overnight. Skill development is something that you can't do. And that's probably one of the elements for me that holds the deepest sustainable and real true change.
I agree.
So the question also though is that it must translate to sustainable. So meaning hopefully, and I'm saying hopefully that we are building a pipeline, and we started from school, and you know very well because you've contributed immensely in building that pipeline with SAPOA, with
100%.
everybody else coming through the pipeline, the internships and everybody else. So the point is that there needs to be also a point where we see the realization of
the fruits of that pipeline.
The fruits of that pipeline coming through into the sector. But to be honest with you, we are not the only sector that is struggling. So especially when it comes to in employment equity. Actually, when we had employment equity, everybody put everybody in junior management. Oh, we had junior management to last us a lifetime.
Yeah.
But people were not they were not progressing into middle, senior, executive. So that's what was happening.
And how do you get past that?
Okay. So for me, in my humble opinion, is that the sector needs to work together. So you need to have a skill development foundation as a sector. It's a property sector skill development. And all of it, you all work together. And
Yes.
this is one area, even when BEE is gone, comes and goes, that will
That
stay.
skill will stay.
And the reason why it will stay, because you'll always need, and you'll always require people that feed into where the industry is going.
Correct.
And if you and that's why, and if we got that right, trust me, Vuso, you will never have unemployment, because there's no one, and you would know very well, there is no CEO whatsoever that will say, if somebody says, oh, that's contributing to where we want to do, wouldn't you hire that that person? Of course you would hire that. Now, currently where we are sitting, you've got academias. They've got their own curriculum. We've got the sector. We've got where we want to go. The two are not linking. Academics have got a tendency of just dusting from their lectures. They've been teaching this thing, so they know at the back of their heads. Now suddenly things are changing, so they are dislodged a little bit, but we haven't even fused ourselves into there. So, but if everybody comes in together and say the curriculum needs to feed to where the industry is going, nobody would actually. If any graduate comes out and says, "You are talking to what we want,"
I would have thought that those conversations are happening with the sector and the universities already.
Well, to some extent. Remember, the university are protecting their thing. But here's what actually, funny enough, it was yesterday that I was sitting in a session with Department of Higher Education, and I'm hoping even they realize it's not only just. Gone are the days where even higher education, its role is just to give people qualification. If that is their view, then it's very narrow-minded. So when you take people to school, it's about changing their minds, their values, their systems, and everything else. And not only giving them qualification, but also seeing them through the economy, how they drive the growth of the economy. Correct. So that's why employment is supposed to be all our roles. It can't be so-and-so's role, not this one, government, not private sector, education. It's every single one of us. So it's supposed to be our role.
So we need to carry on with those conversations. Particularly with the sector, the schools, government, to make sure that we all driving in the same direction. I think, Sis Portia, in closing, I would like to ask you 5-10 years from now.
Yeah.
What's your ideal situation from a transformation point of view of the property sector? What would you like to see in closing?
I think in closing, basically, where probably it's not even an isolated discussion. It's embedded in their business, but it's probably not even a discussion anymore, because
it's part of business.
It's part of business, but at the same time, so it's part of business when you do it. And I was saying this to also even new industries. I mean, we've got IBT, Innovative Built Environment Technology. Says, please, can you make sure there's no barriers and whatever as they come in? Don't let us come back and say, oh, let's transform that. It's new. Let it transform as it comes along, right?
You know what you're reminding me of when you say it's part of business. If you remember, in the 90s, we used to have a quota system for the rugby team.
Right.
And everyone was complaining.
Right.
Saying that the quotas are making the Springboks lose.
Yes.
And now if you look at the team, transformation is not
even an engaged
it's not even
discussion.
A talk anymore.
Yeah.
The whole, the whole market has upped its game and everyone's there. And I think that's what you are referring to.
That's exactly what I'm referring to, that it will be part of business. Those engagement will carry on. But of course, and it's the only thing is that, I mean, I still find what I find slightly still lagging, especially in high school, especially for property. Construction slightly better. When you go to school, property is not a common carrier of option.
No, it's not.
It's not. So construction people know putting bricks. Actually, and I bet you I'm going to ask you the question. When you say I work in property, people say what?
But
sell houses.
I'll tell you something, though, in closing. When I graduated, there were 6 or 5 of us in the class.
Listen to that.
And I went to give a talk a few years ago at my university, and there were over, I think, close to 200 people.
Yes.
So that feeding is happening.
It's happening, and you're seeing a lot more females as well, which is quite
Absolutely.
interesting. But the work needs to continue, and we need to see a lot more of those.
100%. Sis Portia, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming to speak to us today.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
What a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Transformation is complex and at times uncomfortable. But as we've heard, it's all necessary and possible when there's commitment, collaboration, and accountability across the sector. This has been the Retail Exchange, powered by Fortress Real Estate Investment.